you don't just make decisions rashly. Let's try that. So what was part of your decision-making process to come back to South Africa, leaving cushy Europe?
For me, it felt like whenever we had some downtime, like we would go for a weekend, we go to the Alps to go for a nice hike, and you're in these beautiful mountains. And what do? You talk about South Africa. And after a while, I told my husband, I cannot have this conversation again. Like, I cannot talk about South Africa again.
In South Africa, there is something that you at least discerned is you need more than just comfort. You need more than just service delivery. You've referenced it once or twice. Meaning.
I think the idea that everything is good somewhere else and everything is bad over here is very dangerous.
Welcome back to Yo Ma Se Dialogue. So you guys should know by now that there is a national dialogue going on, and all sorts of budgets and lots of fancy people screaming at each other and lots of press. But we unfortunately don't get anything of that budget. This is Yo Ma Se Dialogue, and as a matter of fact, we sponsor a company. So this particular episode is sponsoring Bake Creamy Choc Cookies, and it's not like an Oreo where there's even a little bit of white. This is just an all brown cookie, which is transformation gone wild. All right, this is Home Affairs. Okay, so let's get into our conversation, Ntati Trevor. So we are sorry, I did a horrible job at introducing us. This is part of the Real Talk series, your Master Dialogue, Betereinders, all of those things. There we go, and we are talking about immigration today, Ntati Trevor, and we'll introduce our guest in a moment. The one thing that I'm just incredibly grateful for is it took us, I don't know how many episodes to get rid of Skulk, but we have finally achieved that. Yeah. So you spoke to me
about what?
Well, about this coup of trying to get rid of Skulk. And
no, he's my comrade.
You think?
Viva Skulk, viva.
You see, that's why this won't be a sustainable getting rid of Skulk, because I'm fighting you anyway. So Skulk is in the Eastern Cape apparently, and that has allowed us to bring in Antoinette for our conversation. So Antoinette, you are so welcome.
Thank you.
Let me just sort of introduce the topic, and we're gonna unpack this with you. So, as you know, there's no future for our kids or us in the country, most South Africans, but especially white South Africans. And if you can go, you should go. And I think the best you can do is sort of wear your Springbok jersey at Twickenham when the Boks play there, and you can be like a super proud South African for about 2 or 3 hours. But you must escape. Australia, Europe, North America, that is where the future is. We are on our way to just being another Zimbabwe. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, no. I think one of the things I don't agree with is going to North America. I think that's a problem on its own. Okay. But in general, I think the idea that everything is good somewhere else and everything is bad over here is very dangerous. And in general, it's much more nuanced, right? So we have problems. We can't escape that. Yeah. But it's also true that even going to the best country, you might not feel like this was a good move for you personally, which is kind of counterintuitive, you'd think. If you go to a kind of objectively a better country, quote unquote, that you would always be happier and it would be fantastic. But I don't think that's the case.
So your story.
Yes.
You came back.
Yeah.
Where were you and why did you come back?
So, I mean, I just always wanted to travel. So after school, I lived in the Netherlands for a year. So I came back as quickly as I could from the Netherlands.
How long were you there?
A year. I think I was too young also, and the culture shock was just too much. Then when we got married, my husband and I, we went to New Zealand for a year. We did a kind of a in-office exchange within his company. So we wanted to travel, and it was a beautiful country. But again, like my bags were packed almost a month before the plane left. So I was very eager to come back. And then we were just back when he got the opportunity to go to Zurich. So to the ETH in Zurich, which is a fantastic university. And
Like the best in Europe.
yeah, it's considered the best on continental Europe. So, and it's in Zurich, which is amazing. And it's like you get appointed to work to do your PhD. So you get paid money to study, which is fantastic.
And the whole country looks like a golf course.
Yes.
It's like manicured
Although
and it's green.
There's a lot of rough as well in the Alps, but like it's beautiful, it's clean, it's safe. Even my German colleagues were always kind of rolling their eyes about how ridiculous Switzerland is. Like even within Europe, it's kind of an outlier. So
Just to interrupt you, I had a privilege to be there for 10 days. Because it was like, wow.
It's really impressive. And so what's different about Zurich is, contrary to the Netherlands and New Zealand, is I really enjoyed living there. I could see myself staying there forever. We made friends, we had good jobs, but still there was this feeling to want to come back.
And you were also working at the university.
And then eventually I got a similar position. So I also did my PhD at the ETH. Yeah.
Wow.
So you guys you did your PhD, you got positions at the best university on continental Europe. You guys were happy there in living on the biggest golf course in the world. It's mountains, it's blue water, everything works.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
I mean, I asked myself that question many times, especially when we got back, because then I remember coming in with the plane. We came back in June, which is not the prettiest time in Gauteng.
June this year or last year?
No, we're already back 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so in 2021 we came back.
And then you
look out of the
over
plane.
the East Rand, and it's just
like
it's Kempton Park
exactly,
and Boksburg
like
at its best.
Brown and old mine tailings, and thought, okay, stay positive. This was the right thing to do. Like remind yourself. And then we were here for about a week, and the protests start with in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng.
Oh, welcome
And I
back.
thought, oh wow, this is kind of a big problem. Like
That's welcome home.
yes, like all those things I felt like not belonging, not having meaning in my life, that felt trivial compared to these protests. So did we really make the right decision? For me, that's important, but for my kids, that was kind of my main issue. I was pregnant with our second, and Anita was, I think, about 2 years old. Speaking German more than Afrikaans. So we were I was battling with this question about, did we make the right decision? That was your question.
Well,
did we make the right decision?
So you guys
And
came back, but now the question is
why?
why? Because
Yes.
because you're an academic, you don't just make decisions. Is it at a whim, on a whim?
On a whim? Oh no, I'm not that. Okay, I'm not in English. I'm not English. Is not my field.
You don't make. You were in Germany. In Zurich, they spoke German. They're not English. So you don't just make decisions rashly. Let's try that. So what was part of your decision-making process to come back to South Africa, leaving cushy Europe?
For me, it felt like whenever we had some downtime, like we would go for a weekend, we go to the Alps to go for a nice hike, and you're in these beautiful mountains. And what do? You talk about South Africa. Like you talk about what you saw in the news, and you talk about your family, and you talk about, if we can just do this, that would be so amazing. And after a while, I told my husband, I cannot have this conversation again. Like I cannot talk about South Africa again. But every time we go back,
That would be the environment.
I think
You
the
said when
moment
you're in the
you
mountains,
relax, like if you're busy with day to day, you have work, there's the kids, then you go on. But when you relax and step back, it's not that we appreciate where we were. It was beautiful, but it wasn't like the thing that were deep down in your mind was South Africa and your family and your friends. And a big thing for me was just having the opportunity to live a life of meaning, where I just felt like no one needs me in Switzerland.
Sure.
But there's this slight possibility that maybe someone needs me here. And so that opportunity of what I can do was so endless. It's so endless in South Africa, where in Switzerland, honestly, I think they're fine. I didn't think they're missing us that much.
So you've got a line that I've quoted many times without referencing you. and I get
Coming
cheers
back now.
because I'm a very original thinker. But what is it?
Yeah, I also must confess, I also got it from someone.
Yeah,
else.
of course you did.
Yeah, you don't believe that I'm original thinker. Yeah, what I would say is that people would say, "Oh, this is what I would." When I listen to your story, which fascinates me, is that nothing works in South Africa, but everything matters, and the opposite of that. But at that time, when I heard this, it was about Australia or New Zealand. So now in your case, we'll say everything works in Switzerland. But maybe nothing matters there. Yeah.
So in South Africa, you just butchered your own quote, by the way. So in Switzerland, everything works, but nothing matters.
Yeah.
In South Africa, nothing works, but everything matters.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think another thing that I found, which I think kind of also points to this, is if you look at the happiest countries in the world, South Africa is not on that list.
Yeah.
Or rather, way down.
Yeah,
like,
way down.
I saw last year the World Happiness Report, which is kind of the big one. We were just above the Congo. So we live in a really deeply unhappy country. But if you look at the friendliest countries in the world, South Africa was ranked first. I can't remember the name of the list. Apparently it was very scientific, but I didn't look into the method. But still, even if it's not, we are quite friendly. And I think this comes down to this. It was also something that came out in some of my own conversations after returning, where someone said there's this trade-off between having a functional country, so where everything works, and having meaning. And in many countries in the world, or having community rather, or meaning. Many countries in the world, if you look at something like DRC, for instance, there's very little functionality. So you need people around you to get you through the day. I mean, for basic things, you need people around you. And then you have on the opposite end something like Switzerland, where everything works, so you really do not need the people around you. And that's where the happiness, friendliness comes in. You know,
I'm very skeptical of a friendliness survey. I mean, you looked into the method and whatnot.
No,
so
I didn't.
Okay.
I'm trusting it blindly.
No, not friendly. Sorry, the other one. The happiness studies. I mean, Scandinavia, they usually score very high on that. And my experience of Scandinavians are not necessarily that they are very happy. I wonder if they distinguish between joy and happiness, because even one of the Finnish prime ministers, or not prime ministers, members of parliament, they announced in parliament that we are the happiest country in the world, and then he just said, well, then God help the rest. because if we are the happiest people on earth, then I don't know what to make of that. But happiness, sort of a general sense of satisfaction, is like, I think
very subjective.
It's it's also a very low level thing in terms of what humans need. Far more important than to be happy is to sort of just generally be content. Like, it's okay. I'm happy.
But also happiness is provoked by external, like we just in the township say mgong, or like bring the sound and then we dance, then we have a happiness. Whereas joy is something that's from inward. You can't engineer joy. It must bubble, something that is of God. So I think,
like I am curious to know. Now listen, I mean, this is a podcast, and most, like 80% of statistics are just made up on the spot. But
it's 82%.
82%, sorry. But I venture to say that many of the countries that are the happiest countries probably score very high on depression rates. So I mean, we don't have to debate it. We don't have anything on us, and you're an academic, so you can't just make statements. I can. But the point is that there is something
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of literature on happiness studies, right? Because of this. So, in generally, just quickly, you have two fields of studies. You have the objective and the subjective happiness studies. Objective is usually things like GDP or they try to use like something like the Human Development Index or something that gives us an idea of how it's going with the people in a specific group, in a country or area. And then the other one is the subjective one. So both have their problems. And I think also both have their... So when you look at subjective ones, also it could be that you were stuck in traffic and now you're unhappy. But you're actually fine in life. But if you're going to ask me now, I'm going to give it... So you need a big sample size, therefore all the noise. So that's one thing. And then there's also cultural issues. So I know the word happiness in Japan, for instance, is something totally different, or for the Japanese is something totally different than for other countries. So there's flaws with it, but so I wouldn't trust if it's 6.7%, but kind of if we just look at the ranking, we know at least in general, the average South African is more unhappy than the average, even Finnish person. And a lot of it has to do with just the living environment. People don't have water, people don't have sanitation, and that is really something they battle with as well.
Anyways, but we're getting a little bit distracted.
Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I was listening to a research that was done by the 702 radio station. It was around when there was no electricity, pre-load shedding. There was a time where it happened for a long time. And then they made a research without telling the people who were phoning in or complaining. And then they said, this is what we have been doing, research, without letting people who complained, most of them were white. There was not even one single black person. And then because this is a podcast, we can check with them. And then they said they want the people to phone. Why is it like that? And then it was interesting when they asked black people, because we lived without electricity for years. And so we know it was going to come. So we're not bothered, So for me, it was like those research or the statistics, sometimes they can be reliable, sometimes they,
Well, I just lived without electricity for a week, and I can assure you I am very white. I am incredibly white in terms of my happiness. But be that as it may, I think the point is that in South Africa, there is something that you at least discerned is you need more than just comfort. You need more than just service delivery. You've referenced it once or twice, meaning. So maybe just unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just think also if I look at other people who I really admire, it's usually not the person in the big fancy house with the fancy job, with lots of money. I honestly have a lot of, it's the person that get their hands dirty, that try to make a difference, even if they don't succeed. And so for me, it's just when you have comfort, you feel like, well, okay, great, now I have comfort, but is this really it? This is not enough. And it's very easy, I think, for me, who still have comfort in South Africa, because I moved back, I still live in a nice house and stuff. It's not like we it's a problem for us to move back, to then say comfort is not that important. Because if you have it, you tend to underestimate how important it is.
Take for granted,
Yeah. It's when you don't have it anymore that you think, oh, well, I can do with some comfort, like if you don't have electricity for a week. But still, I mean, something like meaning is, you see people that give up quite a lot of comfort to have more meaning in their life. And it's only when you have a lot of comfort and no meaning that you realize the importance of it.
Okay, but let's talk about meaning. The one thing that you said is that in South Africa, you have the opportunity to make a difference. Whereas you just said Switzerland didn't need you. And
that's powerful.
One of the most fascinating talks I've ever heard is Malcolm Gladwell. I'm not sure you might know Mal. He's like a writer type.
Yeah, the Canadian
guy. And it was this fancy event in New York. Socrates in the City, and it's like a bow tie and whatnot. And he's the speaker there. And one of the NYU students puts up their hand and asks them, what advice would you give to young people like us in New York? And he pauses for a moment and he says, I would probably tell you to move out of North America. And then he says, I don't know, go. And then they ask, where should we go? And he says, I don't know, Sao Paulo, South Africa, somewhere there. Because I think...
Did he mention South Africa?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was going for alliteration, Sao Paulo, South Africa.
Yeah.
And he says, you've got a better chance of living a meaningful life there. I think that was what he was after.
Yeah.
That in North America, in Europe, in Australasia, things are rather sorted out. But in South Africa, for all our issues that we have, the possibility to make a difference is probably more than most places. Yeah. Now, people would say, okay, but why stop at South Africa? Why don't you go to Zimbabwe? Why don't you go to the DRC or whatever? And I think it's legitimate to go to those places.
But isn't it symbolic? Or when you say South Africa, you mean the continent? You don't literally
mean...
Well,
I mean, he could have said South Sudan as well, right? That would have had the same ring to it. But I think a reason why I'd say South Africa gives you more opportunities is we have this very cool combination of both things that work and things that lots of opportunities to get your hand dirty and make a difference. And it's very difficult to do it in countries where it's really a failed state, where things are falling apart. Like the DRC, and where you really feel... And I have so much respect for people who go there. I don't think I'm strong enough to do that. But South Africa gives me a lot of security. My kids are in good schools. We just had a baby. I went to a great hospital. But then you move out of these spaces and there's so much opportunity to try something, to do something. Yeah. So the combination is quite powerful, I think.
And maybe that is something that we should start selling as South Africans. Like, South Africa is a great place to be if you want to make a difference. At the same time, it is a place where you actually can make a difference because there is an infrastructure in place. We've got strong institutions, and we've got unemployment, and we've got like huge townships. Yeah. We've got issues that needs to be fixed, and we've got systems that gives you a fighting chance in fixing those issues. So
we have a common history, though we may not often agree, but we have because we have been locked here for...
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Like a shared history, and like is there a difference between like you've got people who consider themselves global citizens, and I struggle with that. Yeah. I struggle with this idea of I'm a global citizen. So in other words, you can just hop from Dubai, you can hop to Ireland, you can go to Melbourne, then you go to London, then you go to New York, and I mean,
just to add, you and I, we spoke about it, but very briefly. Global is often reduced into those 20 countries when actually we have a continental nation. We have 196. Another list is 228. And those people, when you say you're global, so can you live in South Sudan?
Probably won't.
But it's always the West. So even the Western media, when they say the world, I know they don't count me as a South African.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a chip on your shoulder about the West. We know that by now.
But it's true.
But the point...
But you're talking about the global,
Well...
the global countries where I want to go type of thing. Yeah.
But I think my issue is that
is that real?
Is that real? Like, is there like a sense of place? So is there a sense of belonging?
One of the conversations I had when kind of anxiously trying to figure out if we made the correct decision was with Professor Johan Rousseau from the University of the Free State. And he said, in his opinion, he also said kind of, this is just my theory, but I kind of agree with him, is that the first years of life is very important. And in those, let's say, preschool, 0 to 6 something, you really get to, it's formative years. It's called the formative years as well. And so he found that people who did not really have community in those early years of life, they tend to immigrate quite easily. They're global citizens. They go wherever they feel like going. Usually not South Sudan, but North America, Australia, Europe, etc. So, and I've seen it also with people I know who I feel like they really adopted very well in other countries, were people that I've felt maybe had more difficult childhoods in South Africa. So that's just the theory, which I think can be explored. But that's sad, right? Because it means if you are a global citizen, it probably means that you missed out on a lot of community in your early years. Because if you do have that community, especially if you're exposed to the very best that South Africa has to offer, because we have a great communities here, then I don't think you would be able to jump from one country to the other. If South Africa first grabbed you somewhere in life, then I don't think you would be able to let go and jump around.
Yeah, there's something, and you've said it, and I've experienced it. I haven't lived abroad for long, but I travel a lot for working reasons, and the one thing that I find is when I come back in June over the East Rand, and there's nothing pretty. There's nothing pretty about what you see from out the plane. When you get out of the plane,
you see the filth again. Yeah,
it's ugly. It's the East Rand, and it's winter. It's deep winter. And then I see the customs officer, and there is a familiarity with him. He's black, but somehow there's a familiarity that I can't explain. And I've had this abroad when I'm, like, let's say somewhere in Europe, and I see a black person from far, and I know that guy is a South African.
Oh, wow!
And
without
like I can just it's like a sixth sense. It's my superpower. And usually it's easy to find the white South Africans because they're all wearing K-way, but I can even feel a sense of familiarity, or even when they are just like you can maybe hear them speaking Zulu or whatever, even though I don't understand Zulu. You can sense something, and then there's just like a connection that I can't explain. And you've got this thing where you say you didn't only miss your friends and family, you also missed strangers.
Wow.
Yeah, I just felt like that was in the Netherlands where I was very young, and one day I just felt like even the people I don't know are different, and they look different, and they're much taller because it was the Netherlands. But there was a feeling of even just, and now I feel it every day, especially with schools. Like South African schools are different to any other schools, I think, in the world, where if I drop off my child, it's the teachers invite you in. When you walk, there's moms and parents saying hi, and there's this immediately this community where people in Switzerland were very friendly and very professional, but there was always this kind of
estrangement,
distance between us. And it was not only the language, because I felt it also in New Zealand where we spoke English, so it wasn't that big of a problem. But I felt like language is more than the words. It's also the shared history, the context, the humor, the openness, to what degree, what's considered kind of creepy openness and what's considered acceptable, where South Africans are extremely open to each other. We recently had a Swiss student who helped us with a project, and I picked him up at the Gautrain, and I showed him around a bit, and I took him to Woolies to get some food. So that's all I did. And then I took him to the dorms. And on the way to the dorms, he told me, "Do you guys greet each other always?" And I thought it was kind of strange. I said, "Well, yeah, same as anywhere else." He said, "But do you also say then always, 'How are you?' and 'How are you?'" I said, "Oh, yeah, because the Europeans don't do it. So that's normal, right? People ask you how you are. They're not, it's kind of, And he was quiet for a while. He said, "You are so open and inviting and friendly." And I thought, who did you see? I was the only one who picked you up. And it was literally at the Woolies, the cashier asked him, "How are you? And where are you from?"
Yeah,
and
so almost...
And they don't even know him.
Yeah, and he was kind of confused.
In an individualist setup, you don't actually have the right to ask me how I am. Because
it's my business.
Personal. You can say hi, but
the big cities, even eye contact is very rare. Like it's a very enclosed and sometimes lonely environment. Where I found it just interesting that he wasn't even at the dorms yet, and he already experienced some of that South African hospitality. People are curious about foreigners and open to them, and it's just not the case everywhere.
That is fascinating. I think so. We've spoken about.
We call it Ubuntu. And then I don't believe Ubuntu is only for blacks. I think it's nice. It's a human phenomena, and I know some of the black people will want to own it and patent it. When actually it's a Yeah, humaneness. English.
So,
Yeah.
so I think when people say South Africa is just a piece of land, it's it's nothing more than that. It's just a piece of land, and if I want to go to a different piece of land with a different name, I think you're missing something. Like there is something like a shared history, even if this history between you and me is slightly contentious, not slightly contentious, you know,
or even bloody.
It's ugly, it's messy.
Yeah.
The point is there's something shared there that we can access.
Yeah.
There's something in our I hate this term actually, but there's something in our lived experience that relates, like common references, etc., etc.
Humor, which is very important.
Humor is.
We got in trouble quite a few times for jokes that I did not feel was offensive in any way. That
you mean in Europe? When you're in Europe?
Actually, more in New Zealand. Really, they were very touchy about.
Those guys are humorless, eh? Oh yeah. No,
Shame.
But we have a lot of South Africans, white South Africans in New Zealand and in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, no, a lot of them there. You know what I've heard? No. Like if you want to talk about how humorless the Kiwis
You're
are,
all in for it.
with the one exception, the Flight of the Conchords. It's
it's hilarious.
Those guys are great.
I have a great story about them. I don't know.
Go for it.
That's it.
These are like, I don't think
It's ridiculous.
The New Zealanders are funny or like interesting, except the Flight of the Conchords. These guys are amazing. They're a comedy duo and they just make funny songs.
But we were on the beach. My husband was swimming and I was sitting on the beach. And Jermaine of Flight of Conchords came and sat next to me. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. It's the first famous person I've met. But my husband loves the show and I want him to come and see. Jermaine is here. And I thought, I don't want to go in because I don't want to go in. But I'll shout from the beach into the ocean for my husband to come out. Now I think I should just pick my Afrikaans words in a way that Jermaine doesn't realize. And I thought, I'm going to scream. I'm going to say the Afrikaans. Johan, kom kyk. Die man van die storie wat ons kyk is hier. Okay, so no English words that can give away that. And I go stand on the beach next to Jermaine and I shout, Johan, kom kyk. Die ou van Flight of the Conchords is here. And he looked at me and smiled and I kind of blushed, deep red, and sat down, put my head into the sand.
Oh man, so, yeah, that guy is funny, but I
and he
think,
left. Sorry. Yeah.
So your husband never got
It was
to meet
all
him.
for nothing. Yeah.
And then you took flight as well, and you went to Zurich. Yeah, fair enough. So Flight of the Conchords is at least responsible for two people leaving
exactly.
New Zealand.
Getting out of there.
So we spoke about sort of a shared history. There is something. I mean, there's a lot of things that divide us, and our cultures are different and whatnot. But when you are away, you realize, my goodness, there are a lot of things that unites us. And I think that is interesting because we always just focus on the stuff that divides us. And then you go and live somewhere else for a while, and then you realize there are so many different things that you miss about strangers, about other races, which I find interesting. The other thing, and I know I'm picking a little bit on people who've immigrated, because let's be honest, there are, I think, sometimes legitimate reasons why people have immigrated. Sometimes it's just an opportunity that is foolish to ignore professionally or whatever. So I can sometimes be a little bit facetious about this, but let's just put that out there. I also have a sister. I love her like a lot, and she's got a lovely family. She married a Brit and whatnot, and we've forgiven her for that. But the point is that
are they overseas?
They are living in England, yeah. So it's not a, like, we can't be legalistic about this thing. But the one thing that I do find annoying, and I've heard this from many of my friends who have immigrated there or just lived abroad for a long time, is they didn't want to spend time with other South Africans there because those other South Africans were just talking about how crap the country is the whole time. Okay. So there's this other guy, I met him other day here in Pretoria. He's like a accountant type, and he said at one point in England he just stopped going to the South African braais or whatever because they would just gleefully saying, "Oh, we made the right decision. Have you heard how horrible it is in South Africa?" Is that something that you encountered?
Definitely. Less so in Switzerland because it wasn't one of these immigration nations, like, where you can easily get in Canada, New Zealand, Australia. I think it's worse there. New Zealand...
You don't have spares there. Because I was in England, I saw they have a spares. They are all like in the same spot. Yeah.
Savannahs and the Nando's. But I think... So in New Zealand, when we heard someone speaking Afrikaans, we just shut up because we didn't want to engage with them after a while at all. And I read on the BBC this interesting article of a journalist who his parents immigrated from Algeria to Canada. And then he, as a young man, decided he wanted to go back to Algeria because he said growing up his dad was always like this. He always badmouthed the country, whatever the news. If it was that it's going better in the schools, his dad would say, see, the state is controlling the media. If it went worse in the schools, his dad would say, see, the place are falling apart. So whatever, he would spin it in a way that... And so his dad was very bitter. He said growing up, his dad was always very negative about everything. And he said he felt it was his dad's way of justifying the decision to move.
That's sad.
And so he went back to Algeria. Now, that's a longer story, but I found that quite interesting that he initially was very excited about Algeria. And everybody told him it would be horrible to get hospital care or whatever you need, it would be difficult. But he was very excited. And initially it was also very kind of an adventure. And when the adventure kind of wore off, he moved to Europe and he was in France for a year or something and he moved back again. And he said something that was quite interesting for me. He said the second time he was not nearly as excited to move back to Algeria as the first, because he knew there was truth in some of the things people said. It was difficult to get a healthcare. It was difficult to get your passport. All those things was a problem. But, and he said, I wouldn't trade it for anything because here I can do what I love. Here I can have an impact. Here I see myself. Like I'm willing to bear all these issues to be the place I love, doing the thing I love. So I think sometimes you do see, and just going back to your previous point about people immigrating for various reasons, I'm not anti-immigration. I just want to give information that this idea that everything is bad here and everything is good overseas is wrong. And you do give up stuff when you leave. Stuff that you might not now realize are important to you. And we kind of rationalize it away before we go. I make new friends or, the weather would be worse, but the crime would be better. So
I like the one
on average,
I like the one that says, God called me. It's always in Europe.
It's always to Australia,
it's always
right?
in Europe, not in like one of these obscure countries.
There is South Sudan. God is not there.
Exactly.
It's very
exactly.
silent there.
No, I'm also...
Don't you have that one? Has not God called you to...
Well, I mean, there's this fake news website, The Challenging Times, and they wrote this article that says record number of pastors prayerfully discern God is calling them to the Western Cape. So I think you have that on a global scale as well. But Antoinette, so we've heard this so many times. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my kids, and in some cases where people have just repeatedly been the victims of horrible crime, that I understand that sentiment. But I also sometimes think we naively think we do it for our kids, where you think it might be better for your kids to be here.
I definitely am.
And what do you base that on?
So a few things is like, first of all, what do kids need? They do not need, they need a community. And that includes family, larger family, grandparents, friends, a sense of belonging. That's what they need. They don't need the idea of having a job in 20 years. Although I would argue even if you want job security, South Africa might even be a better place than many European countries where there's a lot of competition. So that's the first thing.
Complain they sell affirmative action and all that, black affirmative action.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you look at the employment rate of white people, it's still kind of comparable to Spain. And so it's not. And the other thing is, just for entrepreneurs and opportunities. We see here's emerging markets where it's, I think, much more difficult to get into new.
So that's an interesting point. So all the state positions and the official positions, maybe even at universities or whatever, where the state can sort of put their levers in, the white people struggle. But in a developing economy, there are lots of entrepreneurial opportunities.
And just in something like Switzerland, there's a lot of competition. Like, I mean, we were just lucky that we got the positions that we
were
did.
just so amazing.
No,
we got into the best university in continental Europe.
We were, well, that's another point, is with my background at a South African university, I could get into the best university. Like, I personally don't think I was necessarily the best candidate. We got also very lucky going in, but I had the skills. I were taught the skills in our basic, I wasn't in a private school, I was in a public school here and just one of our universities. So the point is, our institutions were good enough for me to go to the best university in continental Europe. But that's a side point. What were we talking about before?
Kids.
So that's the one thing. The other thing is also, I think, our kids don't need an easy life. Kids want chaos. They want to explore. They want to dare. And we must let them. And I feel like I have a few studies that I've read up on this. Like one that I always found interesting is a psychologist called Robert Aldrich, I think it's Aldrich. Where
Harvard, I think he did the community studies.
Background
and
is. Yeah. But he wanted to know.
What's his name again?
I think it's Robert Aldrich.
Okay.
He wanted to know, why are certain people creative? So he was interested
Bowling
in the
Alone.
idea.
Didn't he write Bowling Alone?
I don't know.
Okay,
This is the only study I've ever heard of him. But he was kind of curious about creativity. And so he went to pick out the most creative minds he could find in architecture, media, there was a few others. And he just wanted to understand, why are certain people more creative than others? And what he found was creative people grew up in areas that were slightly chaotic. So there was a little bit of security, again, coming back to this idea that South Africa is an easier place to make a difference than South Sudan. So we do have a little bit of security. It's not that difficult. We have great schools, etc. But then there's a whole range of area where you can just explore. And that's really what creates creative people. And that's also where South Africans are really considered very innovative people. I think it's just coming from the background.
That's an interesting comment, because if you think of these amazing songwriters or these amazing artists, they never actually went to Harrow School or Eton College and then straight to Oxford University. And I've written songs about my hardship, and I've like most of the time it's
guys from the
with a chaotic environment. That is such a fascinating observation.
So for me, I just felt like I don't want to give my kids a bad environment to grow up. So they still have friends there, still have family, they still have all the joy that we experience here. But I mean, they can go out and do something every day. They can try. Where things are highly regulated in many other countries that work. Like the story I like to tell is when we just got there, we moved in close to an old age home, and I didn't have a job, so I was kind of bored and stuff. And so I felt like, maybe I can go to the old age home and ask them if I can, volunteer, and then they can help me learn German. So it's all German old ladies, so have lots of time. And I can just help them with groceries or just keep them company a little bit. And they literally told me no. They don't want me there. Because I was
But you were rejected by
free work
for free work in a German old age home.
Soweto, we will give you
exactly. So and I think that's a good. There, I just felt like, they really
I'm coming back to South Africa.
They really don't need me. There's really not where there's just
also
so much
with the
more.
charities there. Sometimes when they give their Christmas list of what is needed. It's like Smeg toasters or something. Like, is this really what is needed? Shame on you.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for kids to explore. And
I wanted to tell you, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Go ahead. Go ahead. I feel terrible that I'm interrupting you, because you were talking about kids. In Soweto, if you come on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a lot of cars, posh cars. Coming to Soweto, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you see them coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like the black middle class, the Trevors of this world. They just go and sleep in the suburbs, posh suburbs, but the meaning, the existential meaning of their life, it's done in Soweto. They feel at home, you know.
Interesting.
And then, I mean, for me, I can't forget this. It's like you thought it will, because 1994, that's when officially our country changed, but it happened before that. If you remember that the Mandela came out of prison in 1990. Already that process started. You know, people who could own the houses in the, you know, before the apartheid officially was dismantled. But that lifestyle where you black people will be like, and then we come to the township to show off our cars, what we have achieved. You know, even our kids, they have this English accent. You know, and then But my point, as you say, is like the
it's
meaning.
Belonging.
Yeah, it's belonging. Yeah, and I resonate with just what you say. And for me to hear you saying that, I love it because there's a lot of common things between us, and we don't see until we are out of the country.
Yeah. So, in terms of doing this for your kids, trying to create an environment where your kids are robust. Where they are exposed to germs. This is something that you always talk about. Is that for a kid's immune system, it's not good to be in a sterile place. And I'm 100% stealing this from you. It's good for them to
be sanitized. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is something about Europe that is maybe just sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a compliment. It's an over-compliment. But in South Africa, we've got sufficient germs for your immune system. So in other words, for kids to grow up to be like stronger people, character-wise, emotionally, or whatever, we can offer you enough germs. We should put that on the tourism
But I've
marketing
also
brochure.
seen that you guys in winter, your kids, when I came to your house, they're not wearing shoes. They're working, you know,
Not the shoes.
and then it's cold, and then it's like.
Shoes used to keep driving me crazy in Switzerland. Like everybody, and apparently I'm not the only South African expat that experienced this, but I'd like my kids to walk barefoot. It's also good for them and they want to do it. But the Germans did not like. I just always hear behind me like, aber barfuß, you know, like, but barefoot. Like, anyway, but.
Yeah, I'm the same like
how
them.
could
I
they?
wouldn't want to walk around with barefoot, but I understand.
Yeah. Maybe black people and the Germans do have something in common. And it's called shoes. Yeah, but yeah, I think the point is
just one more thing. I think if I look at countries that's kind of quote unquote the immigration nations, North America, Canada, Europe, I also feel that if I look at the youth in these countries, and this is a personal opinion, like I haven't lived in most of these countries, but I do feel there's a little bit of a crisis among the youth of countries where everything works. And because children inherently look for meaning.
Yeah.
And if everything is perfect, they're going to try and find it. And one of many topics around woke things that's kind of ridiculous. That's what they want. They want meaning. So I thought rather than giving them the opportunity to explore some of those topics that I find sometimes ridiculous, let them deal with real problems every day.
Yeah.
So just to unpack that, and it might offend you, but I don't care, is that what Antoinette is referencing here, we've spoken about it off air, but if you think of where a lot of this activism is taking place, and I would often accuse it of cheap activism, is in your Londons, is in your New Yorks, is in your Melbournes and whatever. And like just, standing up for this, and this is the end of the world, and we are being fought by real Nazis, and this fascism must stop now, whatever. And it's this desire to be in a fight. It's this desire to stand up for something bigger than you, but there really isn't a lot going on. So you invent a Hitler, you invent a cause to fight, where and
or you blow it up,
and
it's often there. It's not that it's not a problem,
course,
but you make it much bigger than it needs to be.
And it's this desire to be part of something, to fight for something. And it's also a desire for community, because I think they realize that it's this vacuum of secularism, and to just sort of jump ship and just say, we live here. There's not enough to sustain a meaningful life. And there's not a lot of community. Remember, like most of the time, these people are also sort of faithless.
Essentially, it's a sign of a spiritual crisis.
It's a spiritual crisis, and then they latch on spiritually or religiously, and we've spoken about this, religiously to some of these political or activist issues. But it is an attempt to find meaning in this huge vacuum that is this global immigration nations.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
then even in the 60s, many the hippie people, they would go to the East to discover the spirituality there, the silence, the meditation, as if the Christianity didn't offer. It's just that they were not aware. But then they would look into the East, the Buddhism and all that. And when actually Christianity it's rich with that, with that. So my point is that it's also always been there, that from the 60s, the Western young people would go to the East to look for a meaning in spirituality.
Young people are looking for belonging and meaning. It's both are easier here than somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's in essence why I moved back for my kids. We didn't understand the German after a while. She was asking for a bunch of things in German, and we just didn't know what she wanted. So
your kid was speaking better German than you. So like
much better.
My kid is not allowed to be more intelligent than me. Let's move.
No, we have to move back right away.
In my mind, I can't see you as a white. I'm seeing you as a black person, because when I came back for my kids, you messed me around, because the stereotype is like white people go out there for their kids.
Yeah.
Even we know some of them, they lie. It's not so much but
well,
I don't know
we
about that. But I just love
But
it.
I have so much sympathy for that, because it's so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to sit here and talk about it, but if you go out and you see things are not working, if you hear about someone being attacked at home and stuff, that's scary stuff. And it's very easy to say, this is not the environment I want for my kids. So I do have a lot of sympathy for that. Also kind of battling with that myself.
I understand that,
But again, my message is just that your kids are going to give up a bunch of stuff that you don't realize now. The other thing that I always see about families immigrating is there's at least one that's not happy in the new country. And that creates within the family a lot of tension. That's just, that's almost per definition. There will be one that enjoys it less than the others, right? And now it's not the world it's making me unhappy. It's my mom and dad, because they brought me here. And why did you do it? And I want to go back, and you can't go back. Your sister wants to stay, your mom, So I've seen a lot of families kind of shattered across the world after a while, because no one is finding what they're looking for.
Yeah. So I think it's a very sober conversation, Antoinette, and I think it's very much needed. I know you've been accused of being an ANC. What do you call it? Like working for ANC intelligence to
spy.
A PR consultant for the ANC, kind of bring out good content for the ANC.
Yeah. And I know you're still waiting for the money to come in.
Yes,
and
eagerly.
please share that with me. By the way, I've been accused of getting George Soros money and promoting transgender surgeries. I also haven't received any
I'm the
of
only
that.
one who is holy here. Johan, before we close, I need to tell you about one of your heroes, Bram Fischer, an Afrikaner, who was the first advocate to stand for Tatu Mandela. And then you remember he left and he taught the world.
Oxford, I think.
Yes, and yet at that time he knew that he might be arrested, but he still came back. I don't know, you know that. So for me, I consider it as my ancestor, and I know it sounds bizarre, but I've learned that we have Shaka is my Shaka is my ancestor. Dadomoholo Mushweshwe is my ancestor, so I'd consider him. So I'm saying a guy who lived many years ago, who had all the opportunity to stay in Europe, and he knew that he might be arrested, but he still came back. And this is so for me, I'm saying it's some of the people like within the Afrikaner community, Bram Fischer himself, he started this thing that this is home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'm going to try and land us with is, I wonder if there's a reason why Why Chasing the Sun, which is the documentary about the Springboks, which is a lovely thing to share with your church youth, very clean language and everything. So you must consider that. Why is it so popular? Why is it such a big thing? And what's happened since is like lots of these other countries, rugby countries, are trying to make rugby documentaries, but it's just not working the same way. Like the South African rugby documentary just grabs everybody's imagination where the others do not. And you've got Rassie in one of these talks, one of his famous motivational talks. He says, what do you think is the motivation for those other guys to play? What do you think is their motivation? It's to like express their skill set. Like, what is our motivation to play? It is to save a ugly word country. It is to save our country. That's why we play. Like, who do you think who has more to play for? Those guys or us? And I think that illustrates that in South Africa, like everything matters. To get back to that quote, like in South, like nothing works, but everything matters. And it just seems like there is a heightened intensity in South Africa in terms of the stakes are high, and that is something that really excites me about our country, and why I think people should consider to come to South Africa or to stay in South Africa, not for necessarily service delivery, not necessarily for all those things that we typically use when we make a decision like that or reference when we make a decision like that, but to stay for the sake of meaning. This is a great country to live a meaningful life. One thing that always excites me is that whenever I go out on a given day, I have an opportunity to maybe create some cognitive dissonance with many black people who maybe has a perspective about white people. And it might be a small conversation, and there's just a little bit of healing that comes in. And like the stakes are high for like small conversations, and these are the kinds of things that excites me. I think it's good for my kids to be exposed to poverty. It's good for them to see how people suffer and to talk about those things as well. So Antoinette, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Antoinette. Yeah,
you can you have a podcast. Well, what is it called?
O My Volk.
Can you say that?
What? Can you say it again?
O My Volk.
But it's a silent L. Just try to say it.
O My Volk.
Yeah, well done.
Come on, I'm an Afrikaner.
Yeah. No, you did well. You did so well. And it's on Netwerk 24, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It is in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is a wonderful like 4-part episode.
It was kind of my journey coming back, realizing, wow, this is a very difficult place to come back to.
But why you make it only in Africa? Because there are also black people who have left the country.
I mean, initially it was kind of a exercise for myself to try and understand why we moved back. So I just immediately went to Afrikaans. As an
academic, like, let's make this a research question.
I have a sample size issue, but otherwise it's, just spoke to other people who also moved back. So that's why it was Afrikaans. But maybe one day.
One day you can do Oh My Nation.
Damnation, I thought.
Oh My Damnation. Oh, you've thought about it.
I thought about it already, yeah.
My Damnation. I love that. I love that. Antoinette van der Merwe, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Tate Trevor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
we should say Viva to you.
The Viva.
Antoinette.
Yeah. So this was our episode on immigration in Yoma. It's a dialogue. There's a lot of dialogue going on in our country about leaving South Africa, but we think a more nuanced conversation would say, if you are considering that possibility, then make a I want to say a responsible decision and consider some of these other factors, and maybe it's good to engage with some of the things that Antoinette has said. And that is all for today. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.